Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at the Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Well, sometimes you don't have to go all the way to Italy to sample some of the finest food products that Italy produces. And today's guest is my dear friend Francine Segan, who is one of the America's foremost experts on Italian cuisine. She's very engaging and has engaged audience all over the world, starting also with her cookbooks, her TV shows. And whenever we talk about one specific region, her name is always coming along with it, and that will be Emilia Romagna. But we will, so stay tuned, don't go anywhere, a little pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring in person or online to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at istitutomondoitaliano.org. Well, Francine, it's always such a pleasure to have you at the Italian Radio Hour. How are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm always very excited to talk about Italy.
Well, as I said, you are going to be our insiders to one of the probably biggest food exhibits and expos that we get on this side of the world. Is the Fancy Food Expo that is coming up in just a couple of weeks. I believe you define the Oscars for for food. So, well, let's before we get into that, all of that, can we share a little bit about your background? Because people that have been listening to us are very familiar with you, but it might be new listeners, and they say, "Who is Francine Segan, and how did her passion for food started?" And we know there's some curious story related to some birds coming out of a dish or something, right?
I've written 6 books on various time periods of Italian history of food and on different groups of food. My favorite food group, pasta, I did a whole book on, and one on dolci. And I got to travel through Italy to research it. And my love of Italy and Italian food really came from stepping my foot on the wonderful country of Italy. As soon as you go, I think all visitors will agree that you just fall in love. The people are so wonderful. The culture is so rich. The food and wines are so amazing.
And I think also your background was not in food at the very beginning, but again, there was maybe a child involved in some school project or something that opened up the Pandora box, because that was the beginning of then.
It's true. My son came home from school and had to do a project, and the teacher said you had to do some project on it, and it was about Shakespeare, and he was very confused. He didn't really understand. He said, "That's not English." And so he said, "What can I do a project on?" And then he asked a very smart question. He said, "What did Shakespeare eat?" I said, "What a great question." And so that started me researching cookbooks of that time, including many Italian cookbooks of the 1500s and 1600s that were used in England for the upper classes. And so that started my love, and my first book, Shakespeare's Kitchen, which is about Elizabethan and Renaissance recipes and food.
Mm-hmm. And your first trip to Emilia Romagna, do you remember something? Any other cute little stories associated with that experience?
Well, speaking of stories, I love stories. And my first trip to Emilia Romagna, I visited the capital, Bologna, which has these beautiful towers that date to the medieval times. It's totally covered with porticos, so you can walk through without getting a sunburn or rained on. But then while I was there, the local shopkeepers started to tell me stories, like the story behind tortellini, those wonderful filled pasta. And according to the legend in Bologna, Venus came to visit Bologna and stayed in an inn, because of course Bologna has the oldest inn in Italy. And the innkeeper was so curious. She was so beautiful. He peeked through the hole in her door and he saw her getting ready for a bath, and he got to see her tummy and saw her beautiful belly button, was so inspired that he created the shape of the tortellini after Venus's belly button. So when you hear these kinds of stories traveling through Emilia Romagna, how can you not fall in love?
Absolutely. And then if you go on to, if you go there, and I believe also in Castelfranco, because also, you know, there are sometimes little feuds between cities. So like, no, we were, you know, we're the ones where the tortellini was great. But if you plan your trip correctly by looking at Sagre, you know, those food festivals, you might actually see little parades, people dressed up in old costumes and so forth, and really take the experience of eating tortellini to the next level.
You're right. Bologna, Modena, big feud.
Yeah. So you travel quite a bit, and again, you the land of fast cars and slow food seems to be really a territory that you know very well, and that you are asked to represent very, very often. One of the upcoming events, and we'll be talking about it, is indeed the Fancy Food Show that will have an Italian pavilion. And if I remember correctly, it's going to be booth 2612. That's going to be your new PIN code, 2612. And it's going to take place. Remind me of the dates, please.
The Fancy Food Show is in New York City at the Javits Center, and it starts on Sunday, June 23rd, and goes until Tuesday. So 3 days packed with food. The Italian Pavilion is represented by every single region, every single important consortium of food. And Emilia Romagna, since it has the most DOP and IPG products, has the huge forum there where I'm going to do interviews. We're going to have demos.
Yes, if this picture doesn't make you book your ticket now, I don't know what it would, because here we have una tavola in banda of some of the foods that represent this territory, and we're going to kind of dive into each one of them, because they all have their past, their history, their recognitions in the world. And I think we can start from the very beginning, because people might not be familiar with a DOP or IGP, or kind of confuse them both. So would you mind just taking 1 second to explain what one is and means for a product and the consumer versus the other?
As an American, I'm fascinated with the fact that Europe is so careful about its ingredients and foods, and the European Union issues a special designation for foods that are so unique, so original, so tied to history and to the area, that they get a special status. And so in English, we call it PDO, Protected Designation of Origin. In Italian, DOP, just because the language is a little always backwards in English. And that means that a food has very strict controls over how it's made, and where it's made and with ingredients from where. So these PDO products are very local. We talk about eating local. This is the height of local eating. Then the next category is called PGI, Protected Geographic Indication, IGP in Italian. And that's for a food that's also very, very, very special, but its geographic area is a little bit wider and the rules are not quite as intense as the PDO products. But these two honors that are given to foods after many, many, many reviews in the European Union, these are very important for us as consumers to know that we're getting really healthy, quality products that are made under very strict control and that have hundreds of years of history. So it's something that I get very excited about. And was very intrigued to learn that of all the wonderful 20 regions of Italy, which have all fabulous foods, Emilia Romagna has the most PDO and PGI products, part of why it gets called Food Valley.
Yes, so as I said, this is something that the products that we will be talking about today, that you will be also talking about the Fancy Food Festival, that lend themselves also for great travel destinations to see where they are produced and how they're produced. So we're going to tackle them one by one. Let's see, which one do we want to start with? Would you like to talk about the Parmigiano Reggiano and Grana Padano? Because people might also want to know what's the difference. Okay, let's start getting hungry.
Parmigiano Reggiano. I have a piece right here so we could all get into the mood. This is a cheese with 900 years of history. It was first created because the monks wanted to not waste milk. So we often talk today about conservation, about not wasting. They wanted to create a cheese so the milk could last. And Parmigiano Reggiano is made so famous, but only made with 3 ingredients. It's made with milk, salt, rennet, and actually maybe I have to say a 4th ingredient, thyme. It has to age slowly for 12 months to release all these wonderful flavors. And what's so fascinating to me is the care that the Italians give. Not only does Parmigiano Reggiano have only a very limited number of ingredients, no additives, no preservatives, but the milk only is allowed to come from cows within a very restricted geographic area. And the cows have to be Italian. No visas, no day passes to come stay and give us your milk. They have to be pure from birth, and they have to be fed only hay and grass, just the natural alfalfa and the food that's in the meadows, no fermented foods, nothing else. So right from the beginning, these cows are special, the breed, they're given a special, special diet. And so this milk is just rich with the microorganisms that make this area so special. And then of course the master Parmigiano makers. And the way to make Parmigiano is kind of like the way to make Grana Padano. The Parmigiano makers get this very special milk, the evening milk, and then the morning milk, which is very rich. And then it's put in a beautiful vat. And then the masters, with just a little bit of heat, very, very little, start to stir it with a wonderful device called a spina, which is thorns, because in the old days, it used to be with a stick with thorns. and they break it up, and then the curds and wheys come apart, and then they take these linen cloths and scoop up what becomes two wheels of Parmigiano. And so from this 580 plus quarts of milk, we get these two beautiful wheels of cheese. And then they sit and leave some of that wonderful water behind. And then they're put in a round form so that you can see the design that's put into it. Those little dots are pressed into the wheel while it starts its first process. And that wheel doesn't just say Parmigiano Reggiano, but it also says, who was the farmer? Where did it come from, this milk? What day was it made? And so this is you can trace the footprints of this. Oh, and then that wonderful picture of you where they're sitting in the, go back one to you where, oh, good, that's perfect.
I do have a black and white where you, it's very interesting because you can, they teach you how to read indeed all the information that each wheel presents itself. I was going to try to see if I could get some of the vats that you had mentioned, and the territory that you mentioned is obviously have different producers, but it's kind of a restricted area of production. So
oh, and this is the form, and of course here they are after
the Italian gold. It's a gold mine.
After it spends time in the salt, it's then, when it is hard enough, they put it on shelves, and then it's rotated very carefully so that it can naturally air dry and then give us this wonderful, wonderful cheese. And you see the rind when you get a piece of Parmigiano Reggiano. Don't throw that away. That's cheese. And the one that you receive has been cleaned. It's absolutely edible. And I'm sure that, Viviana, you have recommendations. I know I always save the pieces to put in soups and stews to give it a wonderful flavor.
Exactly. It's the little trick if you don't want to make broth from scratch and you might just reach out for store-bought. You put a little bit of the Parmigiano rind and it creates wonders. So if you have just a craving for tortellini, it's like, I don't want to spend 4 hours making my own broth, kind of a little cheating there. I'm sure maybe you can even grill it because, you know, having that little bit harder, I'll have to experiment right now. So it might get a little messy, but
Well, when I put the rind into a stew, I then find that it gets very soft, and I kind of cut it to cubes so that you can eat it too, with not only the flavor, but I like sort of that consistency. So maybe if you take that piece out and grill it, that's a great idea. I'm gonna
and also, you know, to talk about the nutritional value of Parmigiano. So growing up in Italy, that was like the little afternoon snack that provided, you know, the right energy, and you know that whether you had also sports activity afterwards. So sorry for the interruption, but that was our visit a few years ago, and you could see that we still had the little masks. So it must have been right after, you know, when the travel ban was lifted. It was an amazing experience, really. So sorry, I'll let you take the conversation back on on the Parmigiano or Grana.
Let's go to Grana, the other most important DOP cheese. It's actually the world's #1 selling DOP cheese. Grana Padano is very, very important. One of the differences is the area. Parmigiano Reggiano is very narrow area between Parma and Reggio Emilia, but for Grana Padano, we have a little bit wider area that is used for where the cows can come from, where the milk can come from, and where it can be produced. And so because of that, they can make more cheese. But it's got that same wonderful culture of how the milk is wonderful from the evening and the morning that's combined. And then created into these beautiful wheels. So for Grana Padano, you see the wonderful stamp that comes, that fire seal that you see in this picture that says Grana Padano is only put on at the end of the aging. All those marks were put on when the cheese was getting firm, but that fire seal means that it passed inspection. Special inspectors hit with a little hammer to hear if the cheese is perfect so that it can be honored with the logo of Grana Padano and earn that seal. And that shows you that this is the true and real cheese. And the same thing with Parmigiano Reggiano. They can't put on that seal until it's been inspected. And another interesting thing is the fact that these cheeses have such a concentration of milk. You were talking about nutrition. These are highly nutritious. It takes 10 pounds of milk, of more than a gallon and a quarter to just make a pound of cheese. So this is filled with wonderful nutrients. And interesting, it's okay for lactose intolerant people. They can have this wonderful aged cheese, and the cheese comes in different ages. There's the 9 to 16 months for the Grana Padano, which is a little softer and less grainy than the older cheese. And then there's over 16 months, and then they even have an over 20 months, which is a wonderful Reserva Grana Padano. So even more concentrated, intense flavors that can go with everything. Wonderful for cheese plates, wonderful for cooking with, grating, chunking, slicing, shaving.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings me to two other foods. One, which is more an accompaniment, which is prosciutto. You have a slice of prosciutto. You go in the fridge, steal the prosciutto, steal the cheese, and the merenda is done. But the other one, especially when we talked about extremely aged cheese, a drop of balsamic vinegar, probably some that has aged. So where would you like to take the conversation?
I think that everybody knows the name Aceto Balsamico Tradizionale di Modena. That's one of the most famous DOP cheeses, Aceto balsamic vinegars. The other is another DOP, the Aceto Balsamico Tradizionale di Reggio Emilia. So two sections of Italy. We can start with Aceto Balsamico Tradizionale di Modena, which is a DOP, PDO, depending on how you say it, which is a wonderful. This is Aceto Balsamico di Modena IGP. So that's the one that's only aged 3 years, and it has a bigger allowance of where the grapes can come from and how it's made. So that's one of the IGP one. But the one that is the more famous, we'll say, is the Aceto Balsamico Tradizionale di Modena DOP. And that has a different bottle shape that looks kind of like a little pear at the bottom.
It's coming.
And a beautiful, very distinctive bottle. And in the background are the barrels, because not only is this Aceto Balsamico Tradizionale di Modena, so traditional balsamic vinegar from Modena, DOP, PDO, is from a very limited area where the grapes can come from, where it can be produced, very strict rules. There is nothing in there but the grape must, but the grape juice that's been slowly cooked down and then allowed to ferment a little bit, and then beginning its very long process of aging in very high quality wooden barrels. It goes through a series of barrels at least 9 of them. And each one, what's so fascinating, Viviana, is that if you go to visit one of these wonderful aceto balsamico makers, you can smell the wood, you can smell this wonderful process, because they use, for a period of time, they'll put it into a cherry barrel. Then they'll put it maybe in chestnut. And each one of those woods gives it flavor. And in the back of the picture, you see the cloth on top of the barrel. That's a little cloth to keep any little insects that might find their way, to keep them out. But most importantly, to allow natural evaporation, so that slowly over time, the vinegar becomes denser and denser and richer in flavor and more delicious. And this is why this is one of them, the jewels of Italy. Really, really, really special. In fact, this tradition is very, very old in Italy. And in the past, and maybe even today, I bet they still do it. In the past, when a baby was born, the grandfather, the father, an expert in aceto balsamico making, would start a batteria. That's what they call it.
Right. The whole set.
A batch of aceto balsamico, so that by the time the child is 25, the aging, the traditional age of the perfect aceto balsamico tradizionale di Modena, they can gift the child this barrel full of aceto for their family to enjoy. A very, very lovely, tradition.
And also very, very pricey, because let's not discard the fact, because of the aging process and the quality, these little bottles can go for a nice little price. And again, this is the more aged the vinegar is, probably the different is going to be the use of foods. A younger vinegar, your salads and so forth. But once you have a product that has even a stronger identity, just the pairing or just a drop of it, even on gelato, not only on the Parmigiano, or on some desserts, also Prosecco and vinegar and some raspberries that will make a very nice beverage. And the viscosity is like it sticks on your glass and everything. It's just an amazing experience. Be aware of the imitations. Usually this is always recognized by this kind of tulip-shaped bottle. So definitely an experience worth doing at least once in a lifetime. So to visit in Acetaia, do some vinegar tasting, and come back home with one or two.
And the other black gold, the other jewel in Emilia Romagna of another aceto balsamico tradizionale is the one from Reggio Emilia. So from this aceto is made near Modena, and then aceto balsamico tradizionale di Reggio Emilia is the other DOP, aceto balsamico, which again, just like the one from Modena, is only made from grapes, pressed within 24 hours of picking, and only from specific wine grapes from the area. So grapes like Lambrusco, Sauvignon, Trebbiano. So this is something that is like a fine wine, and we can taste it like a sommelier would taste it. And so Aceto Balsamico di Reggio Emilia is another jewel. And just like the one from Modena comes in different ages. There's the one that's 12 years, and then the silver is between that and 24 years, and then the gold is 25 years, and all very, very delicious. And as you say, this is not something for salad. For that, I would use a little bit of the IGP, aceto balsamico, but this is a finishing sauce. You want the tortellini? You don't even have to make a sauce. You can just put a little drizzle of aceto balsamico.
You're giving me an idea.
Just maybe a little salvia, a sage, and butter, tossed with a little wonderful butternut squash and pasta, and then a drizzle of that, risotto, wonderful finish to foods. And then my favorite is steak. A good grilled steak with a few drops of aceto balsamico tradizionale, either of Modena or Reggio Emilia, makes.
Absolutely. I can't wait to hop on that plane anytime soon and again try this. But the one on the tortellini, now you give me some food for thought here. So I need to start experimenting on myself. So the aceto, so we got some cheese, we got some vinegar. How about prosciutto? Can we continue our journey?
That's right. We have our wonderful formaggi. Now we have some salumi. So prosciutto, there's two wonderful DOP. Prosciutto in Emilia Romagna, Prosciutto di Parma, which is from the Parma area, and Prosciutto di Modena. So two wonderful DOP prosciutto. And what's interesting for the Prosciutto di Parma, remember I mentioned in the Parmigiano that the whey and the curd separate? They feed that wonderful, rich, resulting stuff that doesn't go into the wheel of Parmigiano. They feed that to the pigs to make them sweeter and even more delicious and have a wonderful life. And so they're fed the wonderful ham that goes into the Prosciutto di Parma is fed some wonderful extras from the Parmigiano Reggiano. And just like with Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, Prosciutto di Parma can only be made with Italian-born heritage hogs and only from that Parma area. And they're fed a very rich, wonderful, protected diet until the leg comes to the special salt master, because the prosciutto, just like we talked about the cheese, is just the milk, the salt, the rennet, and a little thyme. Prosciutto is just the leg, the salt, and a little thyme. And so this leg comes, and the special salt master will put on the salt, just the right amount. Too much, it tastes too salty. Too little, and bacteria could develop. So very carefully calibrated. And then after a certain beginning time, when it's under refrigeration to start the process, it then is hung so it can slowly age. And Prosciutto di Parma ages wonderfully to concentrate all of that flavor, and it loses a lot of moisture from the salt. If you've ever left vegetables in salt, you see how the water comes out. So this gets very concentrated with delicious flavor. And there's something really interesting that the experts use to test the prosciutto, both the Prosciutto di Parma and the Prosciutto di Modena. This.
Yes, I have one of those. I know exactly
what
it is.
One, so you know what it is. They use this to stick into the leg of the prosciutto in several places, and you'll see the experts testing. And so they stick it in, they smell it, they stick it in, they smell it. What this is not a modern invention that has this magic property where it can absorb the flavor and aromas quickly, so you can smell what it's like, and then release it so quickly that you can smell another section. This is not a modern invention. This is a horse bone. They discovered centuries ago that a horse bone has this magical property of being able to absorb the aromas and release them quickly. And so it's been used for centuries and still is used today to test to make sure that every leg of prosciutto is perfect.
Yes, I was actually visiting a prosciuttoficio in a different region that is also famous for their own prosciutto. And so in the drying room that had natural air for the drying, they had one column that had the original one that the owner, like a couple of centuries ago, used, and that is the holy one. Then they had, no one can touch it. It's there just for, and everyone else has their own. And so we got to experience ones that they inserted and then they removed it, and how amazing the experience is. You just can't wait to dive in once you get into the tasting room, even because you might see like little differences, in flavor, whether it's kind of the first slices or the ones that get closer to the bone, whether you like it saltier or so it's a whole world of so let me see. I think I did have.
Oh, in fact, I was going to mention about tasting it because you can taste prosciutto kind of like a sommelier tastes wine. And the recommendation is a very, very thin slice, either of the prosciutto di Parma or the prosciutto di Modena. And it's nice to taste the two differences. So go to your special shop and get it freshly sliced right off the leg. By hand is ideal, but if by machine too. And then take a little section, especially where there's the fat also in the lean, put that on your tongue and let it just sit for a moment so that you can sense the wonderful aroma. It has a sweetness that's almost like sun-ripened fruit. And then you'll first have the fat kind of coat your mouth, and then that allows the palate to kind of unfold the wonderful subtle notes of the leaner part, which has a nuttiness, a little earthiness, where you really get the sense of the terroir, what the wonderful foods that these fabulous animals ate. And you'll get to experience, before you start chewing, really sense how satiny it is and how it just glides on the tongue, and then when you can't resist anymore and you have to swallow it, that wonderful, wonderful finish. It's got you'll sense that the fatty part has almost a buttery, wonderful scent and a very delicate, salty, almost sweet flavor.
Okay, so before we start talking about a famous, I don't want to call it sandwich, but again, for alternative, before we get there, a couple of words from our sponsors, and then we'll continue our journey into these specialties of Emilia Romagna. Applying for Italian citizenship, need documents translation. Istituto Mondo Italiano provides certified translations and assistance services. Be sure to visit us at istitutomondoitaliano.org and schedule your free consultation. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for nearly 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home. Visit laprima.com to get La Prima Espresso coffee at your door. So now we have pretty much the ingredients for an amazing, let's call it, unless you have a better word, it's not really a sandwich because that's a specialty, has its own identity. And you know what I'm referring to. It's a flat disc. And what are we going to talk about right now?
Piadina Romagnola. A flatbread that is an IGP, so it's geographically protected. Emilia, the name Emilia Romagna is, you hear it's two words, Emilia and Romagna, and it's the region is kind of divided that way. There are dishes that are Emiliani and then dishes that are Romagnoli. And this flatbread is so unique that it was given this special geographic status. It is a flatbread that's made with just flour, water, and lard, but a special lard from the wonderful heritage pigs. And they also do a vegetarian version that's made with extra virgin olive oil. And this flatbread, you'll see this throughout the Romagna area, all along the beach, the wonderful Riviera, along the Adriatic, Rimini, Ravenna. You'll see wonderful kiosks selling piadina sandwiches. And one of the classics is pictured here is, I think it looks like squacquarone, a cheese of Emilia Romagna, and prosciutto, either prosciutto di Parma or prosciutto di Modena. They'll put arugula and squacquarone. It comes grilled vegetables. There are so many variations, and it's sold this way, just folded over. And this is a classic street food and a classic beach food. This is a wonderful treat, and it's really one of those other products that show the simplicity. When you use just a few ingredients, nothing artificial, when every ingredient is mandated to be the best that it can be, it really shows. I can travel in Italy for weeks and weeks and weeks, eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and come back actually weighing the same or even a little less, because you're so satisfied. It's so delicious and it's so pure. So this is an example of fast food, but that's very slow, made with real care and precision and love, and a wonderful treat that's available now in the United States too. So we can have a little taste here. And during the fancy food show, of course, I'm going to be doing talks and we'll have presentations on all of those wonderful DOP and IGP products.
That was going to be my next question. If you can give us an idea of what the schedule is going to be. Again, let's remind people the booth that you're going to be located at, and some of the experiences that people will have while they're coming to visit the Emilia Romagna Pavilion.
So the fancy food show is June 23rd, starting on Sunday, then Monday and Tuesday, the 24th and 25th, and every day we have planned a real food festival. We wanted to recreate the idea of a sagra, Viviana, that you mentioned at the beginning, a food festival in Italy with street foods and the specialty of each sagra, and where there are also fun games and prizes. So virtually every 45 minutes, so start at 10:30, 11:15, and on and on and on. There'll be a schedule when you go, or you can download the app on the Specialty Food Association. It's free for the fancy food show. There'll be a different free demonstration with tastings. We'll do guessing games with prizes. So, for example, the very first day, we're going to start with a demonstration on the shapes of pasta from Emilia Romagna. And there'll be a tasting of tagliatelle with prosciutto di Modena and Parmigiano Reggiano. There'll be wine tasting for every one of them. Later in the day, we'll do a tasting to compare all three of the Aceto Balsamico so that you can really understand the difference, and compare that with Parmigiano Reggiano. And you'll see more details about how it's made, and there'll be more gadgets, like the bones, more gadgets to guess what they're about, and other fun guessing games. And of course, all that wine to taste as well. So lots and lots of food, lots of fun, really fun activities, a lot of photo ops. We've got props for selfies, and we have
I would love to take some of the pictures of some of the props of yourself. I would like to see how the stand will be set up. That's always my, the visual aspect. So,
and then another treat is that we have a wonderful social media presence coming. Convino board is her Instagram name, and she's going to prepare beautiful photogenic boards and champagne towers and interesting ways so that you can take these amazing foods of Emilia Romagna and serve them in simple but stunning ways with really show-stopping presentations and very, very creative visually. So come and learn how to do a wonderful food styling for your next gathering of friends and get to taste all of this wonderful stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what is going to be also in your summer schedule? Would you be going to Italy for a little bit to relax or do more research and explore?
I just in fact came back from Parma, from Cibus, which is Italy's fancy food show, and got to taste wonderful, wonderful foods, including I got some really great ideas for how to prepare, for example, Grana Padano in interesting crisps. So we're going to show you that at the fancy food show, and spend some time in Emilia Romagna. But in July, I'm going to Tuscany. I am returning to the place that kind of kicked off my passion, which was when we rented a house for a month in July in Tuscany along the coast by Versilia, which has a wonderful history of Carnival. So we're going back on our 30th anniversary of.
Wow, congratulations!
So very excited to be back. Our kids and their significant others will be coming, and so I'm delighted to spend a month in Italy in July.
Bringing that kid back, that when he came back from Italy, the only thing he wanted was pasta, 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 right?
Is there any other food worth having?
So, Francine, I cannot thank you enough for taking time to have this lovely conversation. I know, again, you're busy, you're approaching this other big event. Please return anytime, and maybe we'll surprise our audience with a selfie together, or maybe we'll find an excuse to have an aperitivo somewhere in Tuscany. But unfortunately, our time together is up. Il Big Ben ha detto stop. It's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning in into the program. If you have any questions or comments or any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube and where you catch your favorite podcasts. Again, I would like to thank my guest, Francine Segan. Please put the Fancy Food Show on your calendar, or at least if you can go, follow the social media and plan to go there, and also look for those foods in your local supermarkets. Some good Parmigiano, Prosciutto, Grana, Aceto Balsamico, Piadina, you name it. That will be definitely wonderful foods for your table and your family. Thank you to our sponsor, Istituto Mondo Italiano and La Prima Espresso. And until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.